Bob has been a realtor, as he says, all of his life. His dad was a realtor, his sister was a realtor, his brother's a realtor. The Spaley group has been around for an institution here for a couple of generations. He went on to wrestle collegiately at the University of Michigan. Two of his passions are bicycling and downhill skiing, which he's done pretty much all around the world. He's very active in his church, First United Methodist Church. He's taken a number of groups overseas to Africa, Eastern Europe. And in the States here, when he travels, he often did it piloting his own airplane. So to say that Bob is an outgoing and outdoorsy guy is an understatement. So it's ironic that 2 years ago, he was diagnosed with having a tumor in his spine, which left him unable to walk. So after his surgery, he jumped into physical therapy, determined to try and get his legs working again. And when the therapy ran its course, pretty much the medical profession said, "Hey, Bob, we're done. This is all you're going to get, and we'll help you live a life in your wheelchair," which he was obviously very disappointed about. And then, by a chance meeting, he literally bumps into James Henry. And the coach is starting his 29th season as the head coach at the University of Michigan women's track team. He's won many, many honors over the years. He's coached many of the kids on to becoming All-Americans. Two of his students went on to the Beijing Olympics in 2008. So the coach knows a lot about legs and muscles and nerves. So he told Bob, "I'll get you to walk." So this is their story, and I'd like to give a warm Kiwanis welcome to Bob and James.
I was diagnosed with a spinal tumor. It took the doctors about 2 years to figure out what all these weird symptoms were. And slowly, I was losing a lot of my functions. And eventually, by the time they diagnosed it, I was just about a partial paraplegic. And it took one good a neurologist, I should say, and an MRI to prove out what the problem was, that the upper end of, well, the base of my neck, there's a tumor, covers about 4 vertebrae, and it just literally filled up the whole spinal area in there. And it got so big that it is literally pinching off all the nerves that go to my lower body. This kind of a tumor is very rare. It's 1 in 10 million. The next step was to go to radiation oncology, and they radiated me for 6 weeks. And they did a heck of a job, because I have a feeling that they not only stopped the tumor from growing, but I believe it's beginning to shrink as well, which is letting off, I think, some of the pressure, and one of the reasons that James and I are having such good luck. But it's not just the tumor shrinking that's caused my recovery to step up so fast. It's James's expertise. It was hard for me to imagine how difficult it is to live without the bottom half of your body. Just getting around, the mobility, all the issues with that, it kind of felt like I'd had my lower half amputated. My wife, I think, has probably had a harder time with it than I have. She's the one who has kind of borne the brunt of picking up all the pieces. It's her house that's turned upside down. Once I got into physical therapy, they did a nice job. We made a fair amount of progress, but in about 8 or 9 months, we had gotten to the point where I could stand up feebly and walk on a walker with a spotter. In other words, I needed somebody to stand by, because if I tipped over, I'd need help getting back up. And by the time Medicare gave up on me, which was the end of March this year, I was to the point where I could literally walk a quarter of a mile in 41 minutes. And that would be, what is that? I haven't done the calculation. Yeah, really slow. Yeah. Once Medicare quit paying, the doctors and the therapists pretty much convinced me that what I really needed for walking, my proprioception, knowing where your limbs are, wasn't going to come back. And Medicare gets you to the point where you can manage in your own home. For me, that didn't work because I have a bevy of single-family rental homes that I need to maintain and manage, and I have to be able to function in the real world. So at the point they let me go, I was about the only thing I was doing was swimming and going to tracks and trying to get my quarter-mile speed improved and my endurance up and all that. One afternoon in April, on the 21st, I remember it well, a buddy and I were out looking for a track to walk on. And it was a gorgeous day, and I'm sorry to say, everybody's track, Skyline, Pioneer, Huron, every track had a track meet going on. And you know, for somebody who does the quarter mile in 41 minutes, you get run over. So we ended up at the U of M track, and even that had his girls out working on it. And my buddy went in and asked about the indoor track, and they said sure, there was nobody in there. It was such a nice day outside. There was one young lady running the hurdles in that track, as I recall. My buddy and I started around our double loop, and about 2/3 of the way through, James Henry walks in. Now he's way at the other end of this cavern, and he's talking with his hurdler, and I had no idea who he was at that point. Well, he looked up and saw me hobbling along the other side of the track, and he yelled across, he says, "Hey, I think I can help you." And I thought, hey, any help I can get, I'm going to take it. So by the time I got around to his side of the track, we finally recognized each other. It turns out I'd sold him a house 17 years earlier. And that I didn't realize that would come back and be such a benefit. James took me aside, took me in the very back of this huge cavern. He's got 2 massage tables and torture tables, that's right. And in a half an hour of stretching, he improved my flexibility of my legs anyway by 50%. And I thought to myself, you know, this has some potential. And he made the commitment. He says, you know, I think in 6 months I can have you walking. And I thought to myself, if he can do that, he's working a miracle. I'm gonna sign on for this program. So I asked him how much it would cost, and he said, "Hey, don't worry about it. Nothing. We're gonna get you walking." So 6 months later, I took my first unassisted steps, and son of a gun, we've made it. Now it's not pretty, and we have to do it in a pretty well-controlled condition, because if I topple over, it's crash and burn. But every time we do it now, it's getting better and better. And he's literally brought my entire body back. He's brought my life back. And James is probably the winningest Big Ten coach, I think, in the Big Ten, right? Yep. He's got 23 Big Ten championships under his belt. He came here as an elite athlete to begin with in 1976. He did the long jump for the U of M track team. He was one of the 4 best in the country when the '80 Olympics came around, but we didn't go, if you remember that. So that was a big disappointment. He stuck around for grad school, continued to train, and in 1981 had just an amazingly disastrous accident that took him right out of athletics in terms of performance. But I'll let him tell the rest of that story.
Hello, everyone. Hello. I'm that guy. I'm the coach. My name is James Henry. What Bob left out of the story is that when he was walking around the track, I'm sitting, when I have elite athletes, I sit and watch and point and tell them what to do. And that's where we're at now. I can just point and say, Bob, do that, and he can pretty much do it. I enjoy coaching. I enjoy taking a person from one point to the next. We took his braces off, and he has spasticity in his legs, and they wouldn't straighten out, they wouldn't bend, and I kind of felt really bad for the guy because he was out of control. In about an hour, that's calmed down. Half hour maybe it calmed down, and then he was able to bend his legs, which he couldn't when I seen him. So I didn't know where I was going with it. Most times I don't know where I'm going, but I go. That's what I do with my athletes. Let's not worry about the end result. Let's just worry about today and now and where we're at. Now, how do I have this expertise, as one might call it, is that when I was coaching in '84 to maybe about '91, '92, my team sucked. Excuse the ladies, my language. My team was really bad. And my year-end review was that, Coach Henry, you've been here 6 or 7 years. Your team is consistently 8th, 9th, and 10th. Terrible. And I agree, we were terrible. But we were always hurt. We were always having nagging injuries. A kid would say my quad hurt, my knee hurt, my hamstring hurt, whatever hurts. And we had some really severe injuries where kids had operations based on bad knees and ankles, et cetera, et cetera. So I had a large group of nice kids that were terrible. And in essence, I was a terrible coach. So I asked my athletic director, can I go and find some stretching methods to improve my athletes? And they said, sure, it's your job. It's on the line, go. So I went to Chicago School of Massage Therapy, and I spent 9 days there, and they had a program on innovative stretching. So I spent 9 days to do all the massaging and acupressure and all this other kind of stuff, and they spent 2 hours, maybe 2 hours on this stretching. And I seen this stretching before I was born. This was nothing new, what's going on? So I went to the director. I was very, very upset that, hey, I've been here for 9 days. You told me to be innovative stretching, and this sucks. So she said, well, this is all we know, but I heard about this guy in Sarasota, Florida, that's a pretty good guy that knows stretching. I called my AD. She said, it's your job on the line. You might not have one when you come back, so go do what you need to do. So I immediately took a flight down there and spent 4 days. I had hurt myself in '81, and I had a bad injury in my leg in which I hyperextended my leg, stretched a nerve, and I had a 45-degree bend in my leg. And it had been 10 years, walking around with a 45-degree bend in my leg, pretty much with a little boot, we call it, a little brace on my leg. And they said my leg would never straighten out. So when I went to see this gentleman in Sarasota, Florida, he said, what happened to you? And I gave him my big story, and he said, get on the table. I'm like, what the hell is this guy gonna do? Within an hour, my leg was straight. He just broke all the calcium deposit, the scar tissue, and it hurt like Jesus. It hurt like crazy, but then that was the beginning of my success. When I came back that next year, my team won the Big Ten championships with the same athletes. We broke the Big Ten record, and I've been successful ever since. So I've learned over the years his process of stretching, and it's pretty much stretching through movement. Many of you young folks have probably heard your parents say, I went to the doctor and I told the doctor, I moved my hips this way and it hurts. And what did the doctor say? Well, don't move your hips that way. So that's been the tradition, is that I bend over and it hurts. Well, don't bend over. I almost have I do have the opposite beliefs. And that belief is that through movement, the body will work for you. It can heal itself. Now, all things can't heal because I have dropped foot. I stretched a nerve and my foot just hangs down like that. And it's been hanging since '81. But at least he straightened my leg out, and I took the boot off, and I gained my strength back in my leg, and I started doing normal things like chasing my kids around and my athletes, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the reason why I do what I do. That's the reason why my team is as successful as it is. And I do work with other folks that are outside the athletic realm. And I don't have time for Bob, but I found time. The girls on my team have sort of taken him in, and he's taken them in, and they know Bob, and they've seen Bob. And they went home during the summer break and came back, and many of them didn't believe that was Bob. A couple of guys said, who are you working with now, Coach? Because they know I bring in stray folks, that need help. So they said, who is that? I said, that's Bob. They said, that's Bob? And he's walking, and we have this little soft barrier up, and Bob's walking. Bob's doing those things, and I'm doing less. So I'm really pleased that when I said he'll be walking in 6 months, it's from ignorance, and I've been ignorant for many, many years, and I'm not going to accept those people that are smarter and brighter than me that says this is what medical things says happen to you. Because I've seen so many things that's been totally different, and I've worked on people that made such difference that my overall belief now is that if you can't walk 6 months from now, we're going to give it a try to prove that we can. We've rolled over and we've crawled and we've set up, we've done all of those things, but most of it is through movements, through stretching, repetition, weightlifting, and me yelling at him. So we're going to work on getting up, we're going to get a nice good stretch, and then we're going to work on walking. And we're going to walk with somewhat, we call them training wheels, but they're not connected to him just in case he loses his balance. But that was the proudest moment of my professional career when I seen this person go from muscles just jumping and jumping and jumping to be able to now stand up. And where we started is that we started from ground zero. And I'm really pleased with that. So you have any questions for me? Yes, sir.
Who is the gentleman from Sarasota?
His name is Aaron Maddis. And he is a kinesiotherapist that have worked with our presidents of the United States, some of the most famous athletes and non-athletes in the world. I've gone to see him 7 years in a row over a 9-day period. He's come up here to Ann Arbor to see me. He's a personal friend of mine, and he's pretty much changed my career because I was an average program until he fixed my athletes.
Great, Coach. And thank you guys for coming out.